Um, since I only
You are
have
still
about,
on mute, I think.
normally you should be able to hear me.
Yes, it's okay.
Okay, perfect. All right. So since I only have about 20 minutes or half an hour, I'll just grab my slides and get started right away. You should be able to see my screen now. So I'll just go into present mode. As Crystal mentioned, I'm Arend Verschueren, the co-founder of Spark, a performance-driven digital marketing agency based in Antwerp. And I will talk a little bit more about how I view the future of search advertising. But before we head out and go into the future, I just wanted to take a step back and look at where we're coming from. And if I would put it on a timeline, you see that there are different steps that have led up to the point where we are today. So Google Ads launched and AdWords back in the day in 2000, and back then it was at on a pay-per impression basis, and ads would only appear at the right-hand side of the search result pages. In that first year, Google Ad returned over $70 million through their advertising platform, which you could say was a very successful first year. Stuff like pay-per-click, bids, the auction, and quality score and so on came in later. And as you know, Google Ads is a platform that's constantly evolving, constantly changing. So in the years 2005, 2008, a lot of new possibilities were added to the platform. So advertisers had the ability to target their users through display advertisements on different websites with the Google Display Network, the ability to track conversions and goals on your website was added, and a tool to do some research based on search queries in different regions, different languages, also were launched in that period. And after that, even more features were added, like ad extensions, call conversions, different target options, and so on and so forth, which had led that more advertisers and organizations kind of were finding their way to the platform, which is driving costs up, but also forces both Google and the advertisers to focus more on the quality of their campaigns rather than their PPC bids that they're having in the auction. And that has brought us kind of where we are today, with a platform that is very, very relevant today in the online advertising space, and only will become more relevant in the future, I believe, because it's more accessible for a lot of people. It's becoming more easy to handle. Google has always been kind of a difficult platform to master. There was a lot of skill and knowledge required. There are a lot of statistics, but as I'll show you, there are a lot of features that are helping people to get started. Data-driven models, machine learning techniques, smart options, and so on and so forth. So those are typically things that are making search advertising, or will make search advertising in the future, a lot easier and a lot more easy to handle. I think both the setup and the management of campaigns today already is supported by a lot of those smart features within the platform, allowing almost anyone to get started with Google Ads. There's an extremely user-friendly interface available. You kind of have the expert mode, which is typically what marketing agencies would use. But if you are a not so marketing savvy business owner who runs a small web shop, for example, and would like to get started, there's an easy way to do that through kind of the dummy interface of Google Ads. Smart options and machine learning and automation also make your life a lot easier. But at the same time, there are things that make life a little bit more difficult when it comes to search advertising. Because everyone has access to those extra features, to those machine learning algorithms, to the smart options, more and more competition is on the way. And I believe that It requires a deeper understanding of how the algorithms work, how search-based advertising works, and then the way you structure your campaigns or your accounts will become very important there. I also think the ability to translate a channel or a certain campaign to the value it's creating for your organization or business is a key step in doing more and doing things better than your competitors. And last but not least, we're gonna be entering a privacy-first future where cookieless targeting is causing a lot of disruption. So how will you handle that? And so if you would ask me what the future of search advertising looks like, I'd say it kind of looks like a paradox where there is a knife that cuts on both edges. There are a lot of things that will make search advertising become more easier than it was ever before. But at the same time, that's what's causing it to become more difficult, because how are you going to do things different from a competitor that's using the exact same tools and the exact same platform as you are doing? So for this webinar, I really want to dive deeper into those two components of that paradox and share my point of view with you. So the first way is the easy way. And I think one of the most important things there is that, and you see this in a lot of marketing platforms, is that there's kind of this desire to build that one-click solution, which is kind of a holy grail for a lot of marketing platforms like Facebook as well. And I did this literally a week ago for the sake of having an example for this session. I literally built a Google Ads campaign in about 5 minutes time and with about 10 clicks. I did it for a web shop I once launched that sold yoga clothes for women. So if I were to be a small business owner that sells yoga clothes for women and I'm totally unfamiliar with marketing, digital marketing, Google AdWords, I would basically still be able to get started with Google Ads in just a few clicks. Whether the campaign setup will be any good is a different question. The point I'm trying to make here is that the tool is becoming very accessible for a lot of people and for a lot of organizations. And I think that will only become more and more important in the future, to keep that in mind. Then there's the smart options in Google that not only make it easier to set up or build a campaign, but also take out a lot of the effort that goes into managing those campaigns. Smart options in Google, they make it easier for anyone to manage campaigns without much skill or time or effort required. You have smart options in a lot of different types. You have smart campaigns in search campaigns, display campaigns, shopping campaigns, where ad creation, audience targeting, ad delivery across the Google channels are all automated based on your advertising goals. And once those campaigns are set up, based on the context that you're in, whether you have no time or knowledge to manage those campaigns, you can choose the bidding strategy that best suits your business. So for example, if you are in a business that typically has high volumes of searches, high volumes of conversions, high volumes of clicks, but you don't have the time or the skill to manage your campaigns manually, you can maximize for a certain goal you might have, maximize the number of conversions on your website, or bid towards a certain target cost per acquisition, or the return you'd like to see on your ad spend. Those are all options that are provided for you in the platform that take a lot of the manual work out of it. So I don't believe marketers today or marketing agencies will make a difference or impact on your organization simply by having the skill to build a campaign anymore, because everyone will be able to do that thanks to these possibilities within the platform. And machine learning and automation, again, is very important there too. And it will only become more and more important as that is what takes the manual work out of handling your campaigns, out of handling your account, which is fantastic because it would allow you to focus more on the strategic elements that go into creating a great campaign. And I see that not only in the ad platforms of Google, you also see that in, for example, the new Google Analytics 4 that was launched pretty recently, where automatically insights will surface and give you a better understanding of who your customers are, where they're coming from, how they're behaving on your website, and so on and so forth. And even in that era where, you know, privacy becomes more and more important and people don't have to consent to being tracked, Google is finding solutions to deal with that. Consent mode, for example, is still in development and is still in a beta program, but will allow you, basically, it's a data model that will allow you to recover the attribution between the click on an ad you launched and a purchase that might happen, even when a user has not consented to being tracked through cookies. So those are all fantastic features, but as I mentioned, like, everyone has these tools in hand, and that will make it a little bit more difficult to do things differently or better than your competitors who are working with those same tools and working with that same platform. And you see that trend over time, that more and more people are spending their ad budgets online. Research shows that online channels are becoming more and more important and will take over on traditional media channels. And that is partly because those platforms are becoming more accessible for everyone. As I mentioned a few slides earlier, that extremely user-friendly interface makes it easy for everyone to get started and to start spending marketing budget on those channels. And today's pandemic, I believe, will only accelerate that trend, both in online competition and ad spend. You really see and you feel that organizations truly have become aware of the importance of being visible online, and that online channels are a great way and a very effective way for attracting the right audiences to their website and to do more business. The second part, which I think is going to be very important in the future, and where you can make a difference, is really understanding how those algorithms of Google work, how those features in the platform work, and rethinking and restructuring the way you campaign on Google accordingly. Typically, data-driven models, machine learning techniques, artificial intelligence, they all depend on both the quality of the data they have and the volumes of data they can work with. So structuring your account to maximize the benefit of that will be key in the future. And an example of this is how Google is removing the broad match modifier from campaigns and basically merging it with an updated phrase match, which typically would force advertisers to group keywords more together. So your data is not spread across 100 different ad groups, because as the data would be spread across 100 different ad groups, it would be harder for the machine learning algorithms to use all those different data points to optimize for it, than when it would be in one pool. So really understanding how that works, and structuring your campaigns and account in a way that enables those smart options, those smart bidding strategies to do their work, is an important next step, I think, a lot of companies and advertisers have to take. And then translating that to business value. If you want your marketing goals to capture a long-term effect, I think you need to understand where your business value comes from and adjust your campaigns and bids accordingly. Typically in accounts, I see people talk about averages. You talk about an average cost per click. You talk about an average cost per acquisition, the average cost per conversion. And those are great starting points, but not all conversions or acquisitions, for example, are the same. They can have different values. There might be segments you want to pay more for. Paying the same for every customer or every visitor on your website is not optimizing for that part where business value is generated, I believe. So to give you a couple of examples and to bring these charts to life, you can imagine that there are different customer segments that have different customer lifetime values for your organization. And in this case, a customer in customer segment A might be a lot more worth for your organization than a customer in customer segment E. So why wouldn't you want to adjust your ad spend to the acquisition of a customer in segment A compared to a customer in segment E, which might be less profitable for your business in the long haul? Another example of how to divide these segments or value buckets, if you will, is, for example, by looking at product margin rates. Some products in certain categories might have higher margin rates than others. So simply looking at the average cost per conversion is not really optimizing for those margins the different product ranges might have. And therefore, you might be even losing a little bit of profit when you would be paying too much for a product in segment E, for example. And that brings me to the next point where, again, I think marketers today really have to start looking at the total picture of things in order to see where the value is created of your marketing efforts, or maybe even more importantly, where the value is not created. Typically in e-commerce, but also sometimes in the services business or in digital products business, there are marginal costs associated with the products or services that you offer. Too often I see people look at two types of costs, which is the ad spend and the unit cost, and they compare that to the revenue, and then you have the return on ad spend. But that does not really give you a clear picture of the true value that you're creating, because oftentimes there are other costs involved as well, like fulfillment costs, the storage costs of your products, and then maybe the cost of your marketing agency, for example. So what is your return on ad spend then really? Return on ad spend does not mean profit on ad spend. And again, one isn't better than the other. It all comes down to understanding what your business goals are, understanding what your marketing goals are, and optimizing for that. And so optimizing for revenue does not mean optimizing for profit per se. Depending on your goal, if it would be, for example, to win more market share, you might want to maximize your revenue, because you know that when you're maximizing your revenue and you're generating more revenue, typically you would be winning more market share. So that's an important distinction to make, and an important way to start thinking about the campaigns you set up and the marketing efforts you roll out. And last but not least, I think we're going to be entering that privacy first future where data and privacy will become more and more important. First-party data and relationships will become more important than ever as third-party cookies will be gone. And so earning the trust of your customers and showing that you use their data responsibly will be key on the one hand, and on the other hand, we're going to need to come up with smarter and more advanced solutions that still enable us to target visitors from other sources than our first-party data. So this normally was a great way to end for me, and to pass the word to Jonas, as he would be talking about a cookieless future. but the topic has changed and might have become even more interesting, as Jan is going to talk a little bit more about multi-channel strategies. I'm looking at the clock and I see that I have about 8 minutes left. So I'm always very happy to answer more questions if there are any. If anyone has different thoughts on it, I'm happy to discuss. You can do it through the Q&A here. Otherwise, you can add me on LinkedIn, send me an email or a text. Doesn't really matter, and I would be very happy to get back to you. So I'll just give you some time to see if there are any more questions that you'd like me to answer. Otherwise, I would be happy to pass the word to Jan, who can take the stage from here.